All right. You know what it is? You know who it is. We're back. Episode 12, I believe. The Fight Cast. We're getting back into the action this week, which I'm excited. We got a UFC Fight Week leading into next Saturday, which I am so excited for. But this weekend, we got some good fights. Wednesday, we got some good fights. Couple things we're going to break down there, some boxing news, and we're just going to go from there. So UFC introducing back to 2021, opening it back up. I don't know if there's going to be fans at this one, but so this actually they're changing up a little bit. UFC on ABC this week. I think it's going to be the first time that it's ever been on ABC. I don't know how it's going to be on ABC. I don't know if it's going to be like, the channel or it's going to be like ESPN type thing on ABC. I don't know. But anyways, so cool card this weekend, bunch of fights to look out for. And then Wednesday night, there's actually going to be another, or it's Wednesday morning at 11, I believe, is the card for Wednesday's fight, which is UFC Fight Night. And then Saturday is UFC 257. We got Connor coming back to dust off Poirier, give him a nice one to the back of the head again. But yeah, so this weekend coming up, main fights to watch out for. We got Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, and then Carlos Condit versus Trevor Brown, I believe his name is, or let me say it quick. I think it's Trevor Brown. Or Matt Brown, sorry. Matt Brown versus Carlos Condit, Max Holloway, Calvin Kattar, and a couple other fights. So breaking this weekend down, I think it's going to be a really good weekend. It's going to be a really good Max. I love Max Holloway. I like watching him fight. And Calvin Kattar is like this up and coming striker. So these guys really aren't ground guys. They're both strikers, and Calvin Kattar has been dropping some people. During the week on Instagram, UFC usually brings up a lot of the old fights from the fighters that are fighting that weekend and shows a lot of their highlights. And Kattar's got some, he throws good, he moves well, but he dropped Jeremy Stephens. And Jeremy Stephens is infamous for the who the fuck is that guy from Connor. But he got dropped and he looks good. And I've heard a lot about Kattar. I haven't seen him fight that much. I watched some of his highlights. Max Holloway, I've seen a lot and a decent amount. And I like him because he's got a lot of patience. He's got a cool style. And he is an experienced fighter at this point. He's fought some very big names. He's fought Connor. He fought Connor really early on in his career. He's had some good wins. He's had some tough losses, honestly. He's one of those fighters that recently, I think he's the favorite for this fight. And I don't think he's as big of a favorite as he should be because he's lost his last couple, or not his last couple, but he lost his two big shots against Volkanovski. And I personally don't think he lost, at least the second fight. The first fight was, neither here nor there, but the second fight, I don't think he lost at all. It goes back and forth on whether, he lost, I don't know, some people watch the fight and you know how that usually is they watch the fight and they see one thing, people see another. I saw he dominated that fight. I thought he won at least 3-2, if not 4-1, but they somehow gave it to Volkanovski, and it wasn't, it was just a weird fight. And I think Volkanovski is a good fighter, but I don't think that he is better than Holloway. I know he showed it once, but I think that so basically what I'm getting at here is I think that due to this recency bias of Holloway losing for the title, I really think that right now Holloway is better than Kattar, and I think he's got the fight package to do that. I think he's got a really patient style. He's a very sharp puncher. He's very much good at moving and getting in where he needs to be, and he's a smart fighter. So I think what's going to happen here is I think that Kattar is going to have his moments, but I think overall Holloway is going to control the fight. And I think that he's going to do it. And I don't want to say a dominating fashion. Like I said, I think Kattar is going to have his moments, and I think he's going to, show why he's in this spot right now. But I think overall Holloway, I think he's going to show up. I think he's going to kind of put himself back into the talk, which he hasn't really been taken out of the talk, but I think he's going to put himself back into that conversation to get back in for another opportunity. I don't know if they'll give it to him because he lost, both of those. But yeah, I mean, I really think that Holloway's better than him, so we'll see. I'm going to predict Holloway by decision, and I think that it'll be closer than. I don't think it'll be like a complete wipeout. Holloway's going to like dominate him, but I think it'll be close. But I think Holloway's going to win. Second fight is kind of. It would have been a good fight like 5 years ago. It's one of these like older guys, Carlos Condit and Matt Brown, who are good fighters. They're definitely experienced fighters. Their records. Carlos Condit's 31-13. Matt Brown's 24-17. So they're experienced martial artists. They both kind of had like lackluster performances, I'll say, on their last one. I think they were both on. I think Condit was on the prelims for his last fight, and he won. And then Matt Brown, I think, got knocked out his last fight. I'm pretty sure. And they're both kind of like these. They were really good. They both kind of had like turning points in their career. Carlos Condit lost the belt that he went for, and he kind of really hasn't been. I wouldn't say the same fighter, but like he hasn't been at that level since he lost. And I think it's just one of those things where you kind of like reach that peak, and then like he didn't get it, and it might have just like took him down a little bit. Matt Brown's been a good fighter, but he's gotten like touched up a few times in his last couple fights. I'm pretty sure they're both of age to be done here. Yeah. Yeah. So Condit's 36 and Matt Brown's 40. They're of age to be out of the fight game. So a lot of people are saying that whoever loses this fight is basically going to lose their spot in UFC. So they're kind of like fighting for their lives here. From what I've seen from both of them, I like Condit, but I like Brown, I should say. I think Condit is the better fighter. He's younger. His last fight looked a lot better than Matt's last fight. So I think that Condit's going to win. I think he's going to knock him out. I think it'll be a KO. I think it'll be either second or third round KO. And I think it'll be a good fight overall. I just think it's one of those fights where, again, you're fighting. These guys are past their primes, just put it that way. And it's almost like this quote unquote like legends fight is from what I've seen of just guys who have been in there. Their names are popular. They're just not at that level anymore. There's a couple other fighters on this card that excited to see. Joaquin Buckley, I think is how you say his first name, is a pretty good fighter that I'm excited to see. I think he's going to pull that out against Di Chirico is the guy who's fighting. And then on the prelims, there is a dude, Phil Hawes. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he is a fucking firecracker. Like this dude, his last fight, I think he won in like 15 seconds. And he's one of Phil Daru's guys. So he is just like a beast. He's fighting and he's working his way up. He's 9-2. He's, an up and coming fighter. He's on the last fight of the prelim. So that means probably when he wins this, he'll be on like a main card coming up. I'm excited to watch him. He was on the Habib Gaethje undercard, and I think he was on the prelims there. And he won his fight in exciting fashion. So, he is someone I definitely want to look out for and watch. I think that he's got a lot of potential, and I think he's got skill. So I'm gonna, definitely put him as like what would we call it? Like a one to watch. We'll put it, yeah. So kind of review that on Saturday. We got Max Holloway. I think he's gonna win. He is the favorite, but I think he's gonna win. I think he's just gonna almost like outclass Qatar in a lot of ways. Condit, I think, is gonna pull away there, and then So the cool thing about this week for UFC is that we got 3 fights in the week. So 3 main cards. Wednesday, we got Michael Chiesa versus Neil Magny. Unfortunately, this fight was supposed to be Leon Edwards and Hamzat Chimaev, but that got stripped because of COVID. This is going to be a good fight, though, and I think that there's a lot to be said about Michael Chiesa. I think he's a really good fighter. He's kind of underperformed in a lot of ways. He's actually, he's one of his like funniest clips, I guess, is he was in the car. He was in the bus that Connor threw the ladder into and got cut. He was in the back seat. And then along with that, so he was at a press conference and he fought Kevin Lee. who's a kind of like a mouthy fighter. He's a good fighter, but he's not like anything special. And
Yeah.
he fought Michael Chiesa, and they were going back and forth. And Michael Chiesa or Kevin Lee said something about Michael Chiesa's mom, and Michael Chiesa's like, "Don't you ever talk about my fucking mom?" And then ran up to him, got clocked at the press conference, and then they got separated. But he's just been one of these dudes who kind of like has some like bad losses, but he's like a good fighter. Neil Magny is a really good fighter as well. I'm torn here. You know, I might even have to come back towards the end of this to like make my decision, but I think it's going to be a good fight. I'm leaning towards Chiesa because I think he's due, and I think I think he's the better overall fighter. But yeah, and then some of these other fights, I think they're just putting this one together, so there wasn't really anything I saw that was worth like talking about. But like I said, I think that this week's going to be cool overall, just for the simple fact that we get 3 fights in 1 week. And then believe me, I got a lot of talking to do about next weekend. So this upcoming episode, we're going to talk about all the Connor and Poirier, the rest of that undercard, because there's Chandler and Hooker, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, so Holloway, decision, Condit, knockout, second or third round. Phil Hawes, I'm going to go with a quick knockout. I think he'll be another first round knockout on that prelim if you want to watch that. And then I'm going to go with, I'll lean towards Chiesa by decision. And yeah, so moving into the next couple topics, we got some boxing news, things to dive on from there. Want to kind of break that down, Jake? We'll have you break that down to start.
Yeah. So this is recent news. Adrian Broner, it now has a fight scheduled for February 13th. So this is going to be his comeback fight. No opponent named yet.
Oh, I thought I saw the opponent. I think he put it on Instagram.
Oh, maybe that's something brand new. And the fight schedule though, still got him to be announced. It doesn't have the fighter named.
Let me look on Instagram.
One of the other bits of news: Sergey Kovalev was supposed to fight January 30th, but he tested positive for PD, so that fight may not happen. Artur Beterbiev was supposed to fight January 30th. Those guys both got COVID. There's no makeup date announced yet. And then the big one. Teofimo Lopez's next fight will be against George Kambosos Jr. I think they're looking to March. And Lopez said that after he beats Kambosos, he's looking to fight Devin Haney. And since last week, there's actually been more about the Tank and Ryan Garcia fight.
Yeah.
So that looks like it is actually going to happen.
That's such a bad
maybe on Cinco de Mayo is what they're talking about. So yeah, some big news for the spring.
Yeah, and I think that breaking some of that down, I was an Adrian Broner fan when he was up and coming. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. He fucked himself over there for a while and like put himself in a really bad position. And I saw some pictures. He got fat, and then he got back down to the weight he's at now.
He looks great now. Great now.
Yeah. The only thing is I've seen some stuff on Instagram, and I've seen him hitting the bag and whatnot. He looks, I don't know if it's just like him training, because he usually doesn't. He trains weird. Like he trains like almost like a half-ass Floyd. But like, he looks kind of slow. He doesn't look as strong, and he looks just like he looks like Adrian Broner, but I don't know. I'm interested to see how he comes back and performs. Because he's one of those guys who I think has all the talent in the world that you want in a fighter, but this head just isn't on straight,
Yeah. It's at some point he just sort of stopped. It seems he stopped working hard.
Yeah. And he let the money that he did have get in the way. And instead of like trying to progress that to a level of, actually taking advantage of it, he, wasted it. And then,
Yes, his nickname is About Billions, and he's not
yeah,
even fucking close to being a billionaire.
or
So
it's that and the problem. So, and that's what he is most of the time.
yeah.
The
He's got
problem.
some work to do. So yeah, I don't know who his opponent is, but I mean, yeah, if he's sometimes this is good for any athlete really, but especially fighters to get away from a while and then come back and realize like, okay, that's what I was doing wrong.
Mhm.
So maybe it was good for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, like I said, I think like a guy like Broner has, and I'm sure he didn't just lose his talent. I'm
Yeah.
sure you don't just lose that stuff. And with him, I think it's just about finding. I think he just needs someone, and I hope he figured it out. Like I hope that's why he's back, and he's got someone in his corner now that's like there to actually support him. And I'm not saying that they weren't there to support him before, but like maybe to keep his head on straight, and he's actually like listening now, because that seems to be the biggest problem with a lot of these boxers is that they have it and then they don't have anybody to actually help them.
Well, the problem is this is the biggest problem. More than any other athlete, a fighter needs confidence, bravado,
Mhm.
and even if it's false bravado.
Yeah.
So like, all the guys that go in and say, "Oh yeah, I'll beat Canelo," you have to say that. You have to believe that. You have
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
or else you don't stand a chance. But realistically, it's like, of course you don't. So it sounds stupid.
Yeah.
But so Broner was trained by his dad,
Yeah.
and his dad allowed him to become that character because that character was brimming with confidence, and that's what made him such a great talent.
Yeah.
So, and this happens to a lot of fighters. It's like a lot of coaches don't, especially when it's their kid, they don't know when to pull back on the confidence. They're like, all right, now it's time to focus in a little more. You know what I mean? It happens to a lot of boxers, man. They because you need it. You need that confidence, and all of it you can muster up. Sometimes it becomes too much, and it gets in the way of the focus. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And like he was one of those dudes though that like you almost felt like it was too much at times, and you always saw it. And like, especially towards the end there when because I think, and like you just said, there has to be a point when you take that confidence, but you also have to train like you're not. You have to
Yeah.
train like you're not the best. And I think he was letting that confidence get in the way of his training, and he wasn't training right. Because
Yep.
if you saw his training, it looks the part, it's flashy, it's the not looking while you're hitting the mitts type thing, like
Yeah.
talking to the camera, the Floydish type stuff. And then when he got into the ring, it was just constant, like and like I said, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago, like watching Broner is frustrating because
Yeah.
like he's got it and he just doesn't use it. And against Maidana, I think he got more shocked than anything, and that's why he didn't use it. And I think once Maidana got in his head, he had a real hard time moving forward, and he got really shelled up because I don't think he wanted to get dropped again. And when he got dropped the first time, it was one of those things where it's just he just got overpowered really, and
Yeah.
he wasn't throwing enough punches back. He was getting pushed back. He was getting just beat in all the right areas, and his defense is good, but it wasn't great. So he just, I think that's what really set him off. And before that fight, it was, he was one of those dudes who was just like a shit talker. And
Yeah.
like, he was backing it up to that point, but then Maidana came in and just embarrassed him. And then like he went downhill from there. Cause I think as soon as he lost the Maidana fight, he lost like 4 of his next 5 or like 5.
Yeah. He looked bad. So he was just those last 4 or 5 fights. He just wasn't. It didn't look like he wanted to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It looked
And
like he wanted to check.
kind of what happened in the Maidana fight. I think he felt like he was just going to walk through him. Maidana wasn't having any of that, and it seems like it got Broner to the point where like he was like, "Well, I'm just going to win by looking good,"
Yeah.
and not really knowing that obviously it's not going to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I
So
think he's, like I said, I hope he comes back because he was a great person to watch. Like he had everything you want. And I'll keep saying it because he did. And if you ever go back and watch Broner highlights, like he was messing dudes up. Like on the way up, he was knocking dudes out. He was fast. He was quick. He had head movement. He had, anything you'd want. And
fucking great, brilliant counterpuncher, brilliant.
yeah,
I mean, he was He countered with the uppercut from both hands. He countered with hooks. Like he was a really really good counter puncher.
Yeah, and hopefully he's got something left and he can like muster that up and like become something and maybe get back to where he was. It's just it's all about his head. If he can keep that on,
Yeah.
I think he's got a lot more good in him. And then kind of that whole thing leading into that, like where does he sit in his divisions? Like where is he going to fight? Because I don't know. What he was a 155 before.
He's 147.
Or 147. So like that would be like who else is in that division? Is that
That's Bud's division.
oh, yeah, okay. So yeah. So
so he's fucked.
Yeah. So it's basically like maybe he can work his way up to that. But
yeah, I mean maybe who knows how much weight he's carrying around now. Maybe he does go to 154, but again, like then he fights Errol Spence. Can he beat Errol Spence right now? I don't know, but he definitely will. We'll see after he gets a couple warm up fights. We'll see like if it looks like he's back in his
I think honestly, like I saw not too long ago he got arrested and he was in whatever. I think him coming back could put like a cool little twist on like either of those divisions. Because he's a big enough name.
If he performs, definitely.
And I think he could be like kind of that missing link where like, because right now there is that, what's next for Crawford? What's next for Spence? Do they fight each other? Do they not fight each other? And like, he could almost come in and bridge that gap to like either mess it up or like, at least fill in to like add some excitement to like that division.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then, moving forward, talking about Tank and Garcia, I mean, I saw a lot of good, but I don't know. I mean, I hope it's going to go through, I guess.
Listen, it's real easy. First of all, so the big names, right? Tank fucks Garcia up right now. If they're saying that the fight is made, so it's too soon for Garcia. Bottom line, he's going to get ran through. Tank's going to win that fight. Tio is fighting George Kambosos, which is not an easy fight.
Mm-hmm.
This dude Kambosos has like blazing fucking speed, and he's this crazy, nutty Greek Australian dude that just uses blazing speed to go forward. So he's gonna give Tio a fight. He may very well end up getting knocked out because he's a little reckless at times, but he's gonna give Tio a fight. So, but I think Tio will get through that, and then he's gonna run through Haney. And so Haney and Garcia will no longer be in those top names in the lightweight division. So by the end of the year, that will be down to Tio and Tank for the lightweight king.
Yeah, and that'll be the fight.
They're still like Tio's still talking about like he says that like at first his plan was to vacate these titles, go up to 140 and fight the winner of Ramirez and Taylor. But now he's saying Kambosos is the mandatory, so he has to make that fight. Then he says he's planning on fighting Haney. So then if he vacates titles after that and doesn't fight Tank and goes up and fights Josh Taylor, I don't know if that's a fight that Tio. I think Tio has a chance to beat Jose Ramirez if Ramirez beats Taylor, but I don't know. I think it'd be hard for Tio to beat Josh Taylor, partly because he's Scottish. So there you go. But he's a very technical, quick fighter. He's got really good power for a guy at 140. So I don't know. We'll see. Like Tio has all these plans, but there's again being a champion in these organizations means that you do have obligations, or you vacate the belt. So that's what he says his plan is now. Kambosos, win that, fight Haney, win that, and then go up to fucking junior welter. So
yeah, I think Tio
not junior, but super light.
Yeah, I think Tio. Obviously, I think that what needs to happen. Honestly, this probably is going to end up better. And like I think you said this last week, this will end up better because we're going to end up getting Tio and Tank, and then that'll
Hopefully.
really decide that. And then they'll probably set up some good stuff regardless, because we'll probably end up getting Haney versus Garcia. And then, kind of like finishing out that little debate between them because it'll just be over.
Yeah.
You know, hopefully Garcia lightens up and realizes maybe I shouldn't take this fight right now. But you know, because that could really again,
It's a done deal, I guess. I mean,
I'm just curious as to what he's thinking because it's gonna alter the rest of his career. Like, and it's it's gonna
yeah. I mean, look, I think I know exactly what they're thinking. Tank is physically in stature the same type of fighter that Garcia's ran through his entire career.
Mhm.
Short dudes that are going to come after him. He could stand tall, use his length, and land that lead and that check hook that he's so good at. That's what they're thinking. The problem is if the holes in his defense aren't fixed, which I don't think they're going to be fixed in time. I don't think they're going to be fixed 3 months from now. And he gets caught, Tank is going to fucking put him to sleep, like real sleep. You know what I mean? Like they're going to have to roll him over and then fucking drag him out of the fucking ring, sleep. So, yeah, I mean, he's got the tools definitely to land on Tank, but can he do it consistently throughout a whole fight without getting caught by one of Tank's shots?
Yeah.
I don't think he can.
Yeah. And especially like going against a guy like Tank, there is only so much, like, he is where he is for a reason. And like you could, and again, Garcia doesn't have the defense to make this happen, but like even if Garcia did have the defense to make this happen, he's gonna catch you at least once. And like once is a guy like him is all you need. You saw what he fucking did to Santa Cruz. And Santa Cruz is a really good fighter. And he put him to fucking sleep. And it was an ugly knockout. It was a scary knockout. You know, he dropped him. He literally had to get carried out. You know, that whole idea with and Santa Cruz isn't a small guy. You know, I would say he's a little bit bigger and probably more experienced.
He's taller, but he's lighter in the ass.
Yeah. But, you know, he's a more experienced fighter who probably.
But yeah, much more experienced than.
But like in terms of like taking shots too. I'm
sure.
Yeah.
Much more experienced in every possible conceivable way. Yeah.
And I think, you know, looking at Garcia as a fighter, he, again, like we talked about last week, has these holes and he doesn't have, I mean, it was clear as day. He doesn't have the chin. If he gets caught, he got fucking dropped.
His chin is fucking butt cheeks. I mean, that shot was not a hard shot. That was an arm shot.
And I'm wondering if it was just the first time he ever got like knocked like that, or if he really doesn't have a chin. Like
it was definitely a flash. He wasn't braced for it. You know what I mean? Like he obviously he didn't see it coming, which again is part of bad defense that you should have seen that coming. It was just a recipe for disaster. Like the shot downstairs, getting him to fucking put his hand down away from his chin, leaving his chin exposed, not bracing for it. The thing coming from way out here and then clocking right on the tip of the chin. It was just, perfect for that moment. Mm-hmm. Not a hard shot though. And he put him down. Again, it was a flash knockdown. He got back up. But the fact that little bit of force took the starch out of you for those few seconds, that's not good, because that's not. Tank throws everything with fucking 10 times the power of Campbell. Everything.
Yeah.
And like when Tank when he throws those uppercuts, you can see like he gets his hips like down to the fucking ground, bends his knees all the way down there, and turns his hips all the way into those shots. And he'll fucking take his head off, man.
Yeah. I mean, overall, and like when this fight officially gets announced, we'll dive into it more. But I mean, I don't see a way in which Garcia comes out on top. So I mean, I'm hoping something comes up, because I like seeing Garcia. I think he's a really good fighter. I don't think it's worth him. Like literally, he's almost putting it like
it's not time
on his career.
Yeah, it's not time. It's not time.
But we'll see what happens. We'll see what goes on there and what ends up happening there. But moving forward, also having some other like kind of more like rumor-ish stuff. Heard a lot of stuff about Conor and Pacquiao coming up that could happen. Apparently, the guy, I forgot who the name is exactly. Someone that's a part of the WBC said Connor's one win away or fight away from a championship shot in
Well,
boxing.
that's yeah, kind of. What he said was the only way he would ever get a shot at fighting for a title is fighting and beating a guy that's currently ranked.
Oh, okay.
Then he would get a shot.
Okay.
So not just one fight away. I mean, he said, if he gets in there and fights and defeats a guy who's currently ranked, then he may get a title shot.
Okay, cool. And like, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting to see. I don't know that.
Which won't happen. Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Anybody that's on the rank list of any of the organizations right now, Connor's not beating any of them. So
yeah. So I mean, it's a cool conversation. I think again, I think it was cool to see once. I don't know, and like I'm interested to see the whole Pacquiao thing because Pacquiao's he's smaller than Floyd, isn't he?
Way smaller.
Yeah. So like Connor's gonna basically tower over this dude, and like. I don't know. I mean, I think, again, I think I saw it with Floyd. I don't know that it's going to be any different with Pacquiao. The only thing that's really different here is that like Connor's actually like significantly bigger than Pacquiao in reach and height and weight. Power, I don't really know how that translates there. I guess Connor's power probably a little bit more since Pacquiao's a little bit smaller, but Pacquiao's also Pacquiao. So
yeah. Pacquiao will. I could predict this fight. If this fight were to happen, Pacquiao would knock him out in like I'd say third, fourth round.
You think so?
Easy.
Wow.
Easy.
Okay. All right.
Pacquiao has that kind of power.
Yeah,
and
I know he does. Yeah.
Again, the big difference is that the way that Pacquiao throws shots at the speed and the volume is not something that anyone in MMA does.
Yeah.
So that's something that Connor has. I mean, unless he's going to fighting sparring partners that are like fighting in the amateurs, and that's what they do is throw 9 million punches around. He's not going to get that, and he's not going to get that work fast enough. It's just too much, and Pacquiao's at too much power, even at his size. He'll put him to sleep real quick. Yeah. Pacquiao ain't the type of dude like Floyd, like, oh, I'm going to let this go on a little bit and play to the crowd. Pacquiao's going to go in there and fuck him up. I mean, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'll definitely be something to look for. I'm hoping it happens because it'll be a cool thing. I think there's a lot going on with him, and I think he needs to focus on UFC. But if he ends up fighting Pacquiao, ends up fighting Pacquiao.
And that actually came from Pacquiao, though. That wasn't even something that Connor brought up. Pacquiao brought that up.
About
the fight? But yeah, Pacquiao's the one that said, oh, I think it'd be interesting to fight an MMA fighter. I want to know what that experience is like.
Yeah.
So he's the one that brought it up.
He wants to know what that check is like. That's what he means.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, you know what? Speaking on the topic of Pacquiao actually, he had a comment about Errol Spence.
Oh,
someone asked him, what are the chances of him fighting Errol Spence? And he said Errol Spence is too slow.
He would get fucked up.
He said Errol Spence is too slow. He said Errol Spence is too slow. He's not nearly as quick as Keith Thurman. But we'll see what happens. That's what he said.
Imagine hearing from Manny Pacquiao that you're too slow as a champion.
Hey man, like when again, it's relatively speaking, it's like Pacquiao's coming from like guys he's fought. Like in comparison to other guys he's fought, he's slow.
Yeah. No, and I think he would I think he'd win that fight too. But I think that seeing Pacquiao, like I think this year is going to be good for boxing. I think that whatever Pacquiao does will be good. Obviously the blemish is going to still be this fucking Floyd versus Logan Paul thing, and that's going to take a lot of the conversation in the beginning. But
to be honest, and before you just I completely forgot about that. I know,
yeah,
like weeks. You know what I mean? Like I forgot it's even happening.
But I'm sure. Well, yeah, and like it'll come up. But I think that this year is going to help boxing a lot, especially with the Canelo on the rise. I think with like these up and coming fighters. I think if Conor steps over to the boxing again, I know that I've heard some other fighters that they've been actually talking about UFC coming over to boxing. I can't remember specifically who, but they were talking about it, and like I don't know, it could be something, but I also don't I think there's got to be. I mean, well, it doesn't really make sense, but a boxer's
I
got
don't
to
want
come
to see
down.
any of that shit.
Yeah,
I don't want to see unless these guys are training for like so. Clarissa Shields is she's gonna make her MMA debut in a few months, I guess.
yeah,
But she hasn't fought in boxing since she's been basically she's dedicated herself to MMA training for I think about a year now. So it'll be by the time she fights, makes her MMA debut, she'll have trained for that and nothing else for a little over a year.
yeah,
That's how it should be done.
yeah,
These guys can't be like, oh, I train, I do MMA, and then for the next 6 weeks, I'm gonna learn boxing. And the same thing goes with a boxer. Like, oh, I've been boxing my life. I'm gonna fucking train MMA for 6 weeks and let's fight. I don't want to see that.
yeah,
It's not competitive. I don't want to see it. You know what
yeah.
I mean?
I don't know what they're. I know it makes sense with Connor because Connor is a talker and Connor is a star. Like he's a legitimate star. I
Well,
don't
and
know
he
that.
came from boxing, so at least he
Yeah,
had some experience. He didn't
yeah. I
have
just
any
don't think that any
actual
of these other
fights, but
guys would make it like close to interesting. Like it just wouldn't be
yeah,
as fun. Like the whole thing with Floyd and Connor, yeah, it was big, but like it was big because Connor essentially like talked his way into fighting the best boxer of all time and had really
yeah.
no business doing it. And then like
No, because both of those guys saw an opportunity. Like,
yeah,
dude, do you know how much fucking money this is going to generate? Like that was kind of a no brainer. But
yeah,
I mean, in terms of money, um, in terms of actual competitive sports, like who gives a fuck? Like
yeah.
this shouldn't have happened.
Speaking
You know
of
what
which, I don't know if this was, I think it was on Ryan Garcia's Instagram story, but he was saying, he said, maybe one day I'll get into the octagon with Connor. She said, maybe one day. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I mean? No, he won't.
These kids,
No,
he's,
no, he won't.
he's just too young. He's just trying to start shit and just,
Listen, this is the world we live in. You got when you have a social media following like that, it just seems like you have to say just shit. Just you
yeah,
have to keep coming up with like vomiting bullshit so your followers stay interested.
that's true.
Because I mean that's idiotic. Like again, I heard um like Jake Paul talking shit about Conor McGregor again, like talking shit about Conor McGregor's sparring partner.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
Well, so
it's like
his sparring partner called out Jake and said he'd like kick his ass.
in boxing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But it's like this kid keeps coming out and saying these things like he was so TMZ caught up to him and asked him about oh, would you ever fight Amanda Nunes? And he was like, no, I'm not fighting no girl. He's like, and he says, he's like, if they fight, he's like, even if I were gonna do it, he's like, I wouldn't fight her, she's only got 1 million followers on Instagram. It's like, what are you saying?
yeah.
Like, we're talking about fighting and you're like talking about followers. Like, who gives a fuck?
Did you see a couple? So I don't know if I mentioned this, but a couple weeks ago, uh, Canelo invited them to spar,
Oh yeah.
and he was like they're disrespectful to boxing, and if they want to come and spar, blah blah blah. And then Logan Paul called out Canelo and was like, "Yo, you were on steroids, like shut your fucking mouth" or something like that. And it stopped there because I don't think Canelo would give them the time of day.
Yeah.
Canelo was just like, like if you want to actually do it, like come spar, like we'll
Right.
spar.
Yeah, Canelo's not about like, yeah, let's go back and forth. You come here and we'll fight.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't fucking know. They're on the news themselves for whatever reason. They're trying. I think they're trying to fight each other eventually. Is what I'm getting, and like what I'm hearing is like Jake and Logan Paul are trying to fight each other. But for real boxing and like the actual sport of boxing, there's definitely a lot coming up. A lot of good. Adrian Broner comeback. We got all the stuff that Jake was talking about. Any news on Lomachenko?
No, actual. I know that he's back in the gym. He's training, so they obviously have a plan. I would assume that he's probably going to fight, May, June, something like that. Maybe sooner, but it seems as though now that he's back in the gym training full time, that they're probably looking for an opponent right now.
Yeah, cool. And then who else? Is there anybody else to keep track on or tabs on? Tyson Fury and then
The Fury
Joshua.
Joshua. We should hear some news on that very soon. I mean, I follow Eddie Hearn on Instagram. He's giving updates all the time. Like, yeah, we're almost there. It's going to be announced. So, um, I think actually, I think the last thing I saw, they're trying to decide on a venue. I think that's where they're at right now. So that fight, I think is pretty much set. Just date and venue, I think is what we're waiting to hear on.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this episode for the UFC. Let us know your predictions. As I said, just to review, we got Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar. I'm going to go with Max Holloway in a decision. Then we got Carlos Condit and Matt Brown. I'm going to go with Condit by KO in the second or third round. Preview for the Phil Hawes on the prelims. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win handily in like the first round. So definitely pay attention to him. And then because of when we film the podcast, usually I predicted the Wednesday fight as well, which is Michael Chiesa and Neil Magny. I'm going to go with Michael Chiesa, and I'll go by decision. And that one I'm definitely torn on. I'm like in the middle, but I'm going to lean towards Michael Chiesa. But yeah. And then boxing news, if you guys have any boxing news or we see any boxing news, we'll obviously keep you guys updated and talk about as much as we can. Next week, again, we got some big fights. Is there anything boxing next week?
Next week, no, still a bunch of Japanese guys.
All right, cool. Well, we got a bunch of stuff to talk about with the undercard for 257, and then obviously the Conor Poirier fight. I could go on all day. So we'll definitely do that next week. But I appreciate you guys tuning in this week. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Peace.